Okay guys, back with the GMC Terrain. I've got everything on the car loose and ready to go. I don't have it off, that way y'all can watch me pull it off the car and then put all the new stuff back on. But here's a second update to the video. I've got all the chains, all the new parts laid out on the table, and I'm going to explain them to you. That way when you get in the car, you'll know where everything's at. So we've got our main chain, crankshaft pulley. There's a dot and a gear, or a dot and a dark link. We've got a guide that goes on the front side of the engine. The cam phaser cams are actually separate. You have it's really kind of hard to see. I can get it to come up there. That says intake, I-N-T. This one over here says EXH, exhaust. They do come with new bolts, so you're supposed to replace the bolts on them because they are torque to yield. Intake camshaft has a diamond shape right here and a dark link. Exhaust cam has a diamond shape and a dark link. Have our timing chain tensioner. The socket that fits this is a 32mm socket. Then we have our tensioner guide. And we also have one guide up here at the top. This particular vehicle we're putting this on was missing this plastic piece and this one, so it only had the one on the front, so this guide was sliding back and forth all over the place. And we come over here to our balance shafts. There are two of them on this car. We'll start with the crankshaft pulley. This one is on the back side of the crankshaft. It's got two marks and a dark link. We have a small guide here. We also have an intake gear, an arrow. It says green right here. It's kind of hard to read. Has an arrow pointing to our dark link. We have another guide. Chain comes over. This one actually goes underneath the gear instead of over the top like this one. It has white and it says exhaust on it, so this is the exhaust side of the motor, just like we saw over here. Intake's on the front of the engine, exhaust is on the back of the engine. Intake, exhaust. This is our water pump pulley. You'll notice there are no links or anything. It does not have to be timed with everything else, all three other pulleys. And we have one more here. We have our tensioner guide. Here's our tensioner. It's got a grenade pin in it. You pull that out, boom, there goes the tensioner. So there's all of our timing marks on this GM 2.4 Ecotech motor. There are a lot of similarities between the earlier generation engines. Timing marks are pretty much all the same, except when you're looking at your cam phasers. There is a few years where GM only had one cam phaser, and then there's quite a few years on the early generation where they didn't have cam phasers at all, and the gear pretty much looks like this, but it lines up and has pins and stuff that line up on the camshafts, but it's smooth, almost identical to this. But there you go guys, this is the timing chains and their marks outside of the vehicle, because when you get over here and get in the vehicle, this little sucker is buried in here. I actually have ordered a cam alignment tool to help break the bolts loose on the cam phasers. This tool right here bolts across the front of the engine and goes into each of the cam phasers. This tool, that tool only runs about 20 bucks on Amazon. So if that's something you guys want to do, you can. But like I said, normally I don't have it, but I went ahead and ordered it this time so I'd have one just to see if it helped out any. We also have, in order to break these bolts loose, there's notches right here that your wrench fits onto. It's a 24mm wrench. Also fits on the back one. So when you're using that to break the 18mm bolts loose, they will actually go through the hole in the front of the tool right there, and you can break those loose. Both of them, the one in the front and the one in the back, you can break those loose. There's also one of the timing chain guide bolts is behind this cap. The cap is on the end of the head, right there. Now, if you'll notice, I do not have the motor mount out of this car. I have a trick that I'll show you a little bit later on about not having to take that motor mount out. But I went ahead and took the upper guide bolt out because it's in that hole buried down there, so it's a little easier, so I don't have to worry about dropping it. And also the timing chain tensioner, if I can get it back there, is on the back side of the head back there, if y'all can see that. It takes some finagling to get back there. Get back there and get that broke loose. I've got it broke loose already so that I can just spin it out when it's time to. But we look at underneath the car here, all of our timing chains. Timing chain guides. Water pump way up in the corner up there. Now, something I didn't tell you guys. Normally on these cars, these balance shaft gears, I normally don't worry about changing them because they're a booger to get loose, and I have yet to find one that has the teeth. What you're looking for is to see if the teeth are sharp, where the chain has been slack on the teeth and it's chewing the teeth up. So I normally don't even worry about changing them. I think I've changed one out of probably 8 or 10 of these timing chains that I've done. So I normally don't worry about changing those because they are a booger to get loose. So we really don't have to worry about those. I hadn't had any trouble, but I do change the gear on the crank, gear on the water pump, both cam phasers, and the gear down here on the crank pulley. This gear is stacked on top of this gear, and all of this sits above this. So that's a quick rundown of it before we actually get into the car and tear it apart. Hopefully that gives you guys some more information on how the timing chains on this setup work and are set up, and we'll